Hey guys, Micah from Black Bear Custom Kydex. I've got a quick video for you today on a couple different sheath systems I just made, and one of them is really awesome and unique, and the other is just something you don't see very much. So let's start with this one here. So this is a Corona folding saw, and both of these projects are going to Robert. And so Robert asked me if I could come up with some way to carry this. Excuse me. A little burp there. Anyway, Robert asked me if I could come up with some way to carry this either on a tech lock or maybe a sling over the shoulder, something like that. So as you can see, I've got a tech lock mounted on it right there. I did throw a thumb ramp on here, but just be aware that the thumb ramp is more there for good measure. It's not totally necessary, and it's certainly not necessarily going to be comfortable for you because of how wide the grip has to be on this. You can't really get a ton of leverage on it, so I don't want to say it's totally aesthetic or anything like that, but it's not it's definitely not as functional as a thumb ramp on a typical knife sheath. So for the most part, I think the best way to get this out of the sheath is just while it's mounted on your belt, to just grip the handle and pull it down. It's in there pretty good, but it's not ridiculously difficult to draw it. Anyway, you can hear it's got a good click going back up in, and I made sure to aggressively mold into those divots. Not so much on this side. This one actually has like the end of the male part of the screw, which is pretty sharp, so it digs and scratches at the Kydex in there. But on this side, you have the actual, I think it's like a Phillips head, but pretty deep recess, so I tried to create a point of retention there. Anyway, there are a lot of drill holes on this thing, a lot of eyelets, and each one can be matched up with another eyelet at some angle compatible with a tech lock. So if you wanted to, you could swap out and maybe find some angles that work with a molly lock, hanging on a pack. You could definitely throw some paracord through this and you know, make a sling to throw over your shoulder, something like that. So this is a pretty versatile setup for what it is. It's nothing terribly special, but I thought it came out nice. It's got good symmetry. It's really cool looking. The reds are as close as I could get. He said red Cryptek as close as I could match. This is the EMT red. Blood red would have been quite a bit darker. So in any event, that's what I got for you on this one. And then he also sent me a Mora Bushcraft black and a Utica UTK, what is it? UTK-B6. So we got this guy here and the Mora Bushcraft black. So anyway, let's check this out. He asked for a drop leg, man, I can't talk, a drop leg sheath, which means it's going to dangle from the belt, but it also has a leg strap on it. And he wanted the breakaway piggyback. So this Mora Bushcraft, which is the smaller knife, in a breakaway sheath means that you can actually separate the sheath, and it's got its own carry system set up ready to go, so you can just pull it off and then immediately start carrying it the other way you want to, independent of the overall sheath. And that's a really cool concept, and you can do that without the use of any tools. You don't need to do anything. It's just all you know, little mechanics on the sheath. So let me show you that. So we got this guy here. He wanted a brown leather drop, or dangler rather, and he didn't request specific color nylon, but for the leg strap I used this. It's got black, it's OD green with a little black line going through it. I think it's a really cool looking, super rugged. It's 2 layers thick of Cordura nylon. It's very, very rugged, and obviously we have like a hunter's orange, or safety orange it's called, as the dangler adapter and breakaway adapter. And actually the dangler is a breakaway as well. So this is a system that I developed per request of a customer, and essentially what it allows you to do is, instead of having to undo your belt to get a sheath on and off with a fixed leather loop, which is the strongest, just so you know, there are ways of making leather loops so that you can put it on and off your belt without undoing your belt. However, like things like snaps, even pull the dot snaps, are not as strong as just good old-fashioned hardware. So a fixed leather loop is always going to be your strongest bet. So anyway, this allows you to use a fixed leather loop and remove the sheath from your belt without undoing your belt. So all it really is a mechanism that essentially treats your dangler like a seatbelt buckle. So with some force, probably about somewhere between 50 and 75 pounds, you can actually pull that sucker out of there, and you'll be able to downgrade your sheath. Just put it down, keep this on your belt, and when you want it back, you just plug that back in. So I've been experimenting a bit with these and trying to come up with sort of the sweet spot where it's strong enough to do what you need it to do, but not so strong that it's, you know, a pain in the butt to pull off. So hopefully this is gonna work for Robert. And the other thing with this that's really cool is I decided to set it up so that the spacing, if you look at, you can see it takes some force. If you look at this, you see these two drill holes. They actually will match up with the drill holes in this little offset here, or offshoot, whatever you want to call it, so that if you want to abandon the breakaway dangler idea, you could just take the screws out of here and these two here. So it's 4 screws total. If you take those out and then use these two to replace through here, you can actually just rock a straight up normal dangler on your sheath instead. So if for whatever reason you're finding that you don't really like the breakaway dangler, you always have the option to just go back to a regular dangler. So that's pretty cool. You can see I've got his initials stamped in there, RH. And as far as the breakaway dangler goes, all you really have to do to get this out of here is make sure you don't grab the handle of the knife. Let me show you real quick. I always set up my breakaways so that if you were to grab your knife, you're going to get your knife out. The breakaway is going to hold your sheath securely, so it's not going to feel like you have two separate pieces going on here. When you want your sheath, you're going to need to grab it. I tend to kind of just grab, this is a really nice contour in front of the handle of the knife, but grab the actual OD green sheath itself and just kind of wiggle it back and forth until you break it away. So the breakaway sheath. And you can see that this kind of shell that I've got set up here is what grips onto the knife, or the sheath rather, to hold it in place. The carry setup that he asked for on this is a large tech lock, and this is actually set up, you can see my kind of iconic asymmetrical spacing. What this allows you to do is carry the tech lock so that your knife is vertical, or you can take those screws out, turn the tech lock 90 degrees, and you'll have a horizontal carry. Or the way that he actually intends to carry it, in our emails he had said he primarily wants to carry it as a cross draw. So I'm actually going to, right here with you watching, I'm going to switch it out. This is just to show you how simple the process is to switch it. Alright, so your vertical and horizontal are going to be through the same two drill holes. So, whoops. So what you want to use for those is the first and second drill hole, horizontal and vertical, because the tech lock is symmetrical, or the grid hole pattern, or whatever you want to call it, is symmetrical. So you can just orient that 90 degrees in any given direction, and you'll have vertical, horizontal match up to the same holes on the sheath. Now for the canted cross draw, you want to line up with the first and third, and then you'll see it, but when you orient your tech lock on there, you're going to go to the bottom left corner, and then the middle row all the way to the right. Alright, just like that. So when it's on your hip, this is the angle that it'll be at, which is, I find, a very comfortable angle for cross draw. It'll be roughly like that. Super comfortable. Very natural feeling. And just to give you an idea of the retention here, that's really solidly in there. It doesn't have a click, but you do have ballistic one-handed draw. And what you got going on, I've decided to kind of create a tapered entry. So as you put the knife in, you can feel it kind of snug into place, but it's not gripping it so hard that it's going to damage the rubber on the handle. So that's an issue with rubberized handles. I think this is Kraton. A lot of the time, Kydex sheaths tend to grip against rubber. There's like an immense amount of friction for whatever reason between the smooth side of Kydex and most rubber materials. So when you have a rubberized handle, that friction against it as you're drawing in and out causes the handle to start to erode. So that's a pretty serious problem you got to watch out for with a lot of Mora knives, a lot of cold steel, things like that. So what I've decided to do was make it more of a gentle entry, and as you get a little deeper in there, it gets a little tighter. So you can tell it's definitely solidly in there. Trying to figure out what that noise was just then. Oh, gotcha. It's like, I know the hardware is tight and I know the knife isn't rattling. You got these are the spacers for your belt. So those aren't super tight. You can clip these off. If you guys aren't familiar with tech locks, you can pull that off, plug it into any one of the rungs, and match up for the appropriate spacing for your belt. Alright, so anyway, you can see before it was vertical, now it's canted for a cross draw. Horizontal would be even farther out of the way. So let's plug this in this canted configuration. There it is. You can see it works just fine. So let me give you just a quick demonstration. Just wiggle it till it breaks free, and then to put it back, you're just going to line it up in there. You can push. I would push from the sheath. Don't do what I was just doing. Just grab the mouth of the sheath and give it a good push. You'll feel it click into place. It's in there super solid. And so one of the things with the breakaway is that a lot of the time you can't necessarily get rivets or rivet the breakaway to the actual sheath far enough up that it really braces it. So like on this one, you can see that this could be a problem. If you really snagged it on something super bad, you'd probably bend something. I think it would probably damage the big sheath before the small sheath, if I had to guess. But there is a great way to avoid that with this particular sheath, and that is using your leg strap. So I've done this with a few different sheaths, just trying to provide some option for an extra safety measure to protect your gear. But what you can do is run your leg strap over the sheath like that, and there's actually quite a bit of material on this leg strap. So let me show you how this works real quick. There's just a milled slot in the back of this sheath, and I run this leg strap through it, and then there's the buckle. This is the only buckle on the strap. All you have to do is lift that up, and you can pull your strap all the way out. I've put, I'm not sure exactly how much. I'd say that's a little bit more than 3 feet. It's probably 3.5 feet. So you have some extra to work with. Hopefully I don't think your legs are that big, but I obviously didn't know, so I just wanted to give you some extra to work with. But what I would suggest doing is maybe take your strap and run it around a couple times like so. And now that sheath is really locked in there. I mean, that's not going to spread apart or anything when you're wearing it. All you have to do is wrap this around your leg, run it through the back of that gate right under the hinge, pull it tight, and then just close that up. And that's pretty darn strong. So especially if you're wearing that and you have it, you know, cinched relatively tight around your leg, you know, not too tight, but that's just going to provide that extra protection and make sure that the sheath never gets flexed away. So that's just my recommendation as a measure to protect it. All right, and now for the Utica, let's wipe some of this dust off it. So going in there, it's got a little click. It's not much of a click at all. It's got a very smooth draw to it, but the retention is very good. It's not going to fall out, and you can see that when you use that thumb push and get that knife free, you'll be able to just draw that straight up out of the sheath, nice and smooth. So one thing I will tell you about this particular knife, so down here the edges aren't very, they're very aggressive. They're not beveled, they're not really chamfered, they're pretty sharp, and this little bolster here, this black piece here, has a lot, I mean, these textures come to the edge, so you have like a lot of little points at the end of each one of these rails. So what I'm finding is, because it's not rounded, it is chewing at the Kydex a little bit. So I had to work with it. Let's see if I can get you a better view here. Hopefully you can kind of see that, these spots here where it's chewing. You can see those bright spots in there. So I had to work with it a little bit to get it to a point where it was, you know, kind of loose enough around those points where it wasn't gonna eventually wear, you know, dig a trench and make the knife loose in there, but tight enough at other points that it was gonna keep good retention, etc., etc. So you can imagine it took a little bit of trial and error, but I think I've got it to a point where it's really gonna work fine for a long, long time. I don't see it wearing out any earlier than any other sheath, so hopefully you're satisfied with that. But in case you're wondering why it doesn't have a very big click, even for a knife that's got such a good contour for molding retention, that's why. I didn't want to make it too tight around that. So I had to find different ways of getting the same level of retention. So as usual, there's no rattle, there's no play, and it's certainly not going to fall out on you, but you do have not quite a ballistic, the sheath is pretty heavy, but you certainly have a comfortable one-handed draw, and both knives, of course, are in there very securely. So, all right, well, guys, I appreciate you digging. Man, speaking of digging, this hole that I'm digging with my mouth. I appreciate you guys sticking it out for more of my rambling. I didn't yawn though, so we got away with it. All right. If you guys like these sheets, if you like this video, hit that like button. If you like my channel, subscribe. Ask you a comment down below. Let me know what you think of these projects, especially this breakaway technology I've developed, and share this with all your friends. Thanks for sticking around. Tune in for the next one. God bless.